AITA for letting my prenup leave my wife with nothing after she filed for divorce. My wife filed for divorce thinking she would pocket half of my assets, but she had forgotten to read a very important detail. My divorce was finalized last month, and I am finally ready to tell the whole story. My ex-wife thought she was going to clean me out, get half of my business, the house, everything. But the prenuptial agreement she signed 7 years ago turned out to be more than just a piece of paper. The look on her lawyer's face when he actually read the damn document was priceless. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let us start at the beginning. I am 34 years old, and I have been running my own electrical company here in Colorado since I was 26. I built everything from the ground up, starting as an apprentice right after high school while others were enjoying college. I chose the hard path from the start. For years of apprenticeship with a near minimum wage, studying electrical codes at night, and passing certifications. At 22, I earned my journeyman electrician's license. I spent the next 2 years on commercial projects, learning management from my boss who was nearing retirement. At 24, I got my master electrician certification, which allowed me to pull permits and manage my own job sites. When my boss retired at 64, I bought the business. We set up a payment plan. I put in all my savings, financed the rest, and took over the client list, contracts, and equipment. At 26, I found myself in charge of it all. The first year, I barely slept, but I managed to keep the lights on. The company does commercial and industrial work, renovating old buildings, installing new electrical systems, troubleshooting, upgrading panels, and redesigning lighting. I have 4 full-time electricians with me, and we are never short on work. The income is good, a solid 6 figures when everything is running smoothly. I also own the building that houses my office and workshop. I bought it in 2016 when the previous owner was in a hurry to sell. It was an old, solidly built garage from the 70s. I paid $180,000 for a property worth much more. I spent 6 months converting it into a functional electrical workshop, doing most of the work myself on weekends. The location is perfect, right on a main road with excellent visibility. I rent out half of it to an HVAC company, which covers most of the mortgage. Today, it is appraised at around $650,000. The loan is halfway paid off. My personal life was simple before Tessa. I had my house, a 3-bedroom ranch I bought at auction in 2014 for $150,000. It was a complete wreck when I got it. I spent 2 years on an intense renovation. I redid everything, tore out the old kitchen, refinished the hardwood floors, replaced the windows, put on a new roof, and installed a new heating system. By 2016, I had turned that $150,000 disaster into a property worth nearly $400,000. My mortgage was only $800 a month, far cheaper than renting. I drove a Ford F-250, essential for work, which I bought used in 2015. It is a diesel with a crew cab, perfect for hauling my tools. I have maintained it religiously. It now has 180,000 miles and runs like new. On weekends, I would work on the house, do side jobs, or head to the mountains. I had friends from my apprenticeship days, but overall, I was pretty much a loner. I cherished the quiet after a week of managing clients. I met Tessa in the spring of 2016 at my friend Owen's wedding. She was a bridesmaid. I was the best man. You know the type of story. She worked as a dental hygienist at a downtown practice. She seemed nice. She laughed at my jokes, even the bad ones. She was 24, I was 27. We talked at the reception, and I got her number. The first few dates were typical: coffee, dinner at a good Italian restaurant, movies. She seemed impressed that I owned my own business and my own home. She said most guys her age were still living with roommates or their parents. I appreciated that she recognized I had my life together, but honestly, it was not extraordinary. I had just worked hard while others were figuring out their liberal arts degrees. Things moved quickly. By summer, we were seeing each other several times a week. By fall, she had practically moved in with me, though she kept her cluttered apartment. I noticed she never offered to chip in for groceries or bills, but it was fine. I made more than she did. I thought it was fair. Her parents were another story. Her father, Harold, owned a network of car dealerships across 3 counties. Real money, multiple vacation homes, a private golf club. Her mother, Elaine, had never worked a day in her life but acted like the CEO of a Fortune 500 company because she chaired a hospital fundraising committee. They lived in an oversized mansion in the hills with a circular driveway and a fountain. The first time I met them was at Thanksgiving in 2016. I showed up in my pickup truck wearing a dress shirt and chinos, which apparently was not formal enough. Elaine literally glared at my truck in the driveway, as if I had parked a garbage truck there. Harold shook my hand with a grip that was desperately trying to prove something. Throughout dinner, they asked questions that sounded polite, but were really just ways to probe my net worth. So, you are an electrician. That is manual labor, is it not? Do you plan to stay in that line of work long-term? Tessa mentioned you have a house. Is it in a good neighborhood? I answered everything honestly without letting them get to me. Yes, I work with my hands. Yes, I plan to keep growing my business. Yes, my neighborhood is fine, even without a 24/7 guarded gate. Tessa seemed embarrassed by her parents' questions, but did not jump to my defense, either. Despite her parents, Tessa and I got engaged in February 2017. I proposed during a hike. Nothing extravagant, just the two of us at sunrise, looking out over the valley we had just reached. She cried and said yes, and for about 10 minutes, I truly believed I had found someone who understood me. Then the wedding planning began, and her parents went into full control mode. Elaine had an opinion on absolutely everything. The venue, the flowers, the menu, the music, the guest list, what I would wear. Harold kept commenting on how my guest list was so small compared to theirs. They offered to pay for the whole wedding, but with so many strings attached it felt like a puppet show. The biggest fight erupted about 2 months before the wedding. We were having dinner with her parents at their private club, a place they insisted on going because it was important to be seen in the right places. Harold ordered for everyone without asking, some kind of power move, I guess. Then he dropped the bomb. We have been speaking with our lawyer, and we think the two of you should have a prenuptial agreement, just to protect everyone's interests. Tessa's face went pale. Dad, we already talked about this. I know what we said, Harold interrupted her. But Elaine and I have significant assets that we plan to pass down to Tessa one day. We need to ensure those assets stay in the family. I just kept eating my steak and let him talk. I knew where this was going. Elaine chimed in with her fake sweet voice. It is just a formality, nothing personal. We just want to make sure that if anything unfortunate were to happen, both parties are protected. What they really wanted was to make sure the manual laborer did not get his dirty hands on the precious family money. Fine by me. I never wanted their money anyway. But this is where it gets interesting. I had already been thinking about a prenup for myself. My business was worth a good amount and was growing. The commercial building was appreciating. The house was renovated. I had worked my entire adult life to build what I had, and I was not about to give half of it away if things went south. But I had not brought it up because I did not want to seem like I did not trust Tessa. So when Harold suggested it, I just nodded. Actually, I think that is a smart idea. I have a business and a few assets myself. It makes sense to keep things separate. The look on Harold's face was priceless. He clearly expected me to argue or get offended. Elaine seemed disappointed she would not get to cause a dramatic scene. Tessa just stared at me. But you want a prenup? It makes sense, I replied. I have the business, the building, the house. You have your family's assets coming down the line. Let us keep what is ours, ours. We will build what is ours, together. And if we split up, nobody fights. Seems fair to me. Harold quickly recovered. Exactly. I am glad you are being reasonable. I will have our family lawyer draft something up. I will have my lawyer review it, I said. And we should probably each have our own representation to keep everything above board. I could see Harold did not like that I was not just going to sign whatever his lawyer put in front of me, but he could not argue without showing his hand. And so, we got the prenup. Her lawyer drafted a document that was essentially designed to ensure Tessa's potential inheritance remained untouchable. It was a dozen pages of legalese about separate property and future gifts, basically meaning her family's money would never be mine. Fine by me. I never wanted their money. The whole document felt insulting, but I swallowed my anger. My lawyer reviewed the document and immediately started laughing. They want you to sign this, but they have not protected you in any way. It is completely one-sided. So we added several clauses protecting my business, the commercial building, my house, and any retirement or investment accounts that existed before the marriage. Then we got creative. My lawyer suggested we include a clause about separate funds for future acquisitions made with business income. We spent 3 weeks negotiating with Harold's lawyer. He wanted the increase in my business's value during the marriage to be considered marital property. Basically, he wanted half of my hard work if we divorced. I said absolutely not. My lawyer held firm. Your client wants to protect family assets, Matthew told their lawyer. Harold tried to apply pressure. He said he might have to reconsider the wedding if I was not willing to be reasonable. I told Tessa to tell her father that was fine by me. We could skip the expensive wedding and just go to the courthouse. She panicked. Suddenly, her parents were willing to negotiate. The final version protected everything I owned before the marriage, plus anything I acquired with funds from my business during the marriage. We also added a clause stating that any acquisitions made during the marriage with separate funds, meaning income from my business, would remain separate property. That was the clause that would later save me. My lawyer defined separate funds as any money originating from my business, since I owned it before the marriage. This meant even the money I earned during the marriage would technically be separate if it came from the business. We also specified that any appreciation on separate property would remain separate. So if my house doubled in value during the marriage, that increase would remain mine because the house was purchased with separate funds before the marriage. The wording got technical, with phrases like any real estate, personal property, business interests, or financial accounts acquired by either party with separate funds as defined in Section 2 shall remain the separate property of that party, including but not limited to any appreciation, rent, profits, or other income derived from said property. My lawyer was hesitant, thinking the language was too broad, but I insisted. I was betting on myself. I told him, my business is going to grow. I am going to buy more properties. I am going to build a fortune. I want to make sure that if this marriage does not work out, I keep what I have earned. Looking back, it was probably the smartest decision I ever made, right after buying the commercial building. Tessa barely read the document. We were at the lawyer's office on a Thursday afternoon, and she was literally on her phone texting her bridesmaids about flowers or some other wedding detail while the lawyers were explaining things. Her lawyer, whom Harold had hired, which was already a red flag, kept trying to get her attention. Miss Peterson, this is a legally binding contract that will govern the division of property in the event of a divorce. You really should review these terms carefully. It protects his business assets and any property he acquires during the marriage with business funds. I do not care, Tessa interrupted without even looking up from her phone. I am not marrying him for money. I have my own family money. This whole prenup circus is just to shut my parents up and secure their inheritance. Can we just sign this and get it over with? I have a dress fitting in 40 minutes. Her lawyer looked at me apologetically. Miss Peterson, I really must insist you at least read the summary section. How much is my dad paying you to be here? Tessa snapped. Because you are supposed to be making this easy, not giving me homework. Where do I sign? The lawyer sighed and pointed to the signature lines. We both signed. We had it notarized by the firm's secretary and filed it properly with the marriage license application the next day. Everything was legal, totally enforceable, and completely ignored by Tessa, who thought it was a waste of time. We never spoke of it again. The wedding itself was an over-the-top production at a winery for 250 people, most of whom I did not know. Her parents paid for it and made sure everyone knew it. Harold's toast was literally about how they spared no expense to give their daughter the wedding she deserved. No mention of me or the life we were building together, just a parade of wealth. The first few years of marriage were okay. Nothing amazing, but okay. Tessa kept working at the dental office, but started taking more days off for random reasons. Shopping trips, spa days with her mom, long weekends at her parents' vacation house. She would sometimes invite me, but I had a business to run and could not just disappear. The money issues got weird around year 2. She had always been a spender, but it intensified. New clothes every week from boutiques I had never heard of. A $300 haircut every 6 weeks at a salon her mom went to. Manicures every 2 weeks, a standing appointment. Another $100 each time. She joined a fancy gym that cost around $200 a month, though she might go twice a week. She traded in her car for a new Lexus RX 350, a fully loaded $50,000 vehicle, financed over 6 years because she deserved something nice. The monthly payment was around $850. At first, I did not say much because she had her own income from the dental office, about $45,000 a year, and I figured she could spend it how she wanted. Except her income barely covered half her expenses. The rest came from the joint account that I funded. I started noticing grocery charges on the credit card, gas on the card, her car payment being drafted from our joint account. She was essentially living beyond her means and using my income to fill the gap. But she also started commenting on my spending. I would buy a new set of power tools for the workshop, professional-grade stuff that costs a lot but lasts forever and pays for itself on the first job. She would roll her eyes and say something like, "More tools? How many drills do you need?" I upgraded one of the work trucks that had 250,000 miles and was becoming unreliable. I found a good deal on a 3-year-old Ford with low mileage. She asked why I was wasting money on that junk instead of getting a new car for myself. The big fight happened when I made an extra $5,000 payment on the commercial building's mortgage. I had had a good month, landed a big contract, and decided to apply the surplus to the principal to save on interest. When she saw the bank transfer, she got genuinely angry and started yelling, saying we could have gone to Hawaii with that money. We could be on a beach sipping cocktails, but instead you are just throwing money at some building nobody cares about, she said one night. That building generates $2,500 a month in rent, I replied, pointing out it was an investment. Every dollar I pay down now saves us $3 in interest over the life of the loan. Everything is an investment to you. Everything is for the future, the business, the property. You are always working or talking about work or thinking about work. When are we ever going to actually enjoy life? When do I get to enjoy life? You can enjoy life with the money you earn, I said, which was probably not the smartest response. She did not speak to me for 3 days after that. I started to notice she was spending more and more time at her parents' house. Long Sunday lunches that turned into dinner. Weeknight visits because her mom needed help planning the hospital fundraiser or her dad wanted my opinion on something. I would get home from work at 6 p.m. and she would already be gone, not returning until 10 or 11 p.m. When I brought it up, she said I was being controlling, that she was allowed to have a relationship with her parents. Which was true, but it felt like she was more married to them than to me. Year 3, things really changed. She quit her job at the dental office. Just came home one day and announced she was done. She said it was too stressful and the pay was not worth it. I asked what she planned to do, and she said she would figure it out. For 6 months, she did nothing. She spent her days shopping, having lunch with friends, and going to her parents' house. I was paying for everything. The mortgage, the bills, the groceries, the car loan, the insurance, the gas, everything. Her contribution was exactly zero. I brought it up a few times, and she would get defensive. "I take care of the house," she would say, even though that just meant she occasionally ran the dishwasher. "And you are always saying we should spend more time together." "Well, now I am available," she would argue when I pointed out the financial situation. But she was not available. She was always busy with something else. Trips with girlfriends, her mom's charity event, a friend's baby shower, anything but spending time with me. Eventually, she got a part-time job at a friend's boutique. 20 hours a week at about $15 an hour. It barely covered her gas and phone bill. But it was something. Years 4, 5, and 6 all kind of blurred together. We were more like roommates than spouses. She did her thing, I did mine. We would have dinner together maybe twice a week. We watched television in separate rooms. We barely spoke outside of the logistics of family visits during the holidays. Our intimate life practically ceased to exist. We went from several times a week to a few times a month to almost never. I would ask once in a while, and she would say she was tired or stressed or just not in the mood. After a while, I stopped caring. I threw myself into my work. I grew the business from 4 employees to 8, opened a second branch in the next town over, started landing bigger commercial contracts, and bought 2 more investment properties, a duplex and a small office building. All paid for with business income, all carefully documented as separate property under the terms of the prenup. Tessa did not seem to notice or care. She would ask how work was. I would give a 2-sentence answer, and that was it. She had no idea what contracts we were working on, what the business was worth, or how much rent the properties were generating. She never asked, and I never volunteered the information. In year 7, she finally made her move. It was late January, freezing outside, and I had just closed a big municipal contract that would set us up for the year. I got home around 7 p.m., exhausted, ready for a shower and bed. Tessa was sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open and several papers scattered around. She had a weird energy about her, nervous but excited at the same time. "We need to talk," she said. Here we go, I thought. Every conversation that ends a marriage starts with those 4 words. "Okay," I said, getting a water from the fridge. "I am not happy," she said. "I have not been happy for a long time. This marriage is not working." I sat down across from her, not surprised in the slightest. "Yeah, I have noticed. I think we should get a divorce." I just nodded. "Okay." She seemed taken aback by my calm reaction, like she expected me to beg or argue or cry. "That is it." "Okay. Tessa, what has it been? 3 years since we have really been married. We do not talk. We do not spend time together. We are practically strangers living under the same roof. You want a divorce? Okay, let us do it." She collected herself, and a small smile appeared on her face. "Well, I have actually already spoken to a lawyer just to see what my options are. He explained that even with that prenup, I am still entitled to half of everything that was acquired during the marriage. Half the increase in the house's value, half the retirement contributions, half the business growth." "The prenup protects the business," I interrupted. "Only the pre-marriage value," she said, glancing at her laptop like she was reading from notes. "Any increase in value during the marriage is marital property. Same with the house. Plus, I am entitled to alimony since I make less than you and I served as a homemaker for part of the marriage." I almost laughed at the term homemaker, but kept a straight face. "You have really discussed all this with a lawyer?" "Of course, I am not stupid. I know my rights." "Congratulations," I said. "I will call my lawyer and get the paperwork started." She looked confused again. "Wait, you do not want to talk about it? Try therapy or something. You just said you are not happy and you want a divorce. You have already talked to a lawyer about taking half of my stuff. What exactly would therapy accomplish?" I just thought, you might try a little harder. Fight for a marriage you have already checked out of in your own head. "No thanks. If you want out, let us just make it clean and quick." She sat there for a minute, probably realizing she was not going to get the dramatic scene she had imagined. Finally, she stood up. "Fine. My lawyer said he will send over the divorce petition next week. You will probably get served at work." "Perfect," I said. "I will keep an eye out for it." She took her laptop and papers and went upstairs. I could hear her making calls, probably to her mom or her friends, telling them about the big confrontation and how I did not even fight for our relationship. Whatever. I had work to do. The next morning, I called my lawyer, a guy named Matthew who had helped me with the commercial property purchases and who had reviewed the prenup 7 years earlier. I told him what was happening. "Do you still have a copy of the prenup?" he asked. "Yep, in the safe deposit box." "Excellent. Get it to me as soon as you can. I want to review the exact wording before her lawyer starts making demands." I dropped the document off at his office that afternoon. Matthew read it while I watched his expression change from interested to amused. "Did she actually read this before she signed it?" he asked. "Not really. She was on her phone the whole time. Said she was only signing it to shut her parents up." Matthew laughed. "Well, she is about to learn a very expensive lesson about reading contracts. This thing is ironclad. Your business, the commercial building, the house, it is all protected as separate property. And that clause about business income remaining separate, that is going to save you a fortune. So, she will not get half. She will get nothing. She is entitled to what she brought into the marriage and whatever she bought with her own money," he continued. "But your assets are protected. The retirement accounts you had before the marriage are protected. Any appreciation on your separate properties is protected. Even the money you earned during the marriage, as long as it came from the business. As for alimony, maybe a small amount for a short period since she makes less, but nothing significant. Colorado is not California. They do not hand out lifetime alimony. And given that she voluntarily quit her full-time job and spent most of the marriage living off your income without contributing, yeah, a judge is not going to be sympathetic to her need for support. We can fight that." I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. 7 years ago, when I insisted on that clause about business income, I was just being cautious. Now, it was going to save me. Tessa moved out 2 days later. She went to her parents' house, took her clothes and personal items, and left the rest. Fine by me. Less drama. True to her word, I was served with the papers at work the following week. Her petition detailed her demands. half the appreciation of the house, half the increase in the business's value, half of my retirement accounts, and $3,000 a month in alimony for 5 years. And she wanted to keep the Lexus that I was paying for. Matthew submitted our response 2 weeks later. Essentially, a no to everything, based on the terms of the prenup. We also included a counterclaim demanding that she take on her share of the marital debt, including the Lexus she wanted to keep. Her lawyer requested mediation. We met in a downtown conference room in March. Tessa showed up in a brand new outfit, looking like she was going to a job interview. Her mother came with her for some reason. I came in jeans and a work shirt, since I had to go to a job site afterward. Her lawyer, a guy in an expensive suit who clearly thought he was a genius, opened the meeting by laying out their position. According to him, Tessa deserved half of everything because she had supported me during the marriage and sacrificed her own career. Matthew just slid the prenuptial agreement across the table. Read page 3, section 4. I watched the lawyer's face as he read. I saw his expression go from confident to confused to concerned. He flipped to page 5, read some more, then to page 7. His entire posture changed. "Can we have a moment with our client?" he asked. They stepped outside. Tessa looked annoyed. Elaine looked confused. I just sat there sipping the terrible conference room coffee. When they came back, the lawyer's tone was completely different. "My client is prepared to negotiate on the amount of alimony." "No alimony," Matthew cut in. "She quit her job voluntarily, spent the marriage living off my client's income without contributing to the household, and earns enough at her current part-time job to support herself. She wants to maintain the lifestyle she had during the marriage. She can get a full-time job." "This is ridiculous," Elaine interjected. "She gave up her career for him. She quit a dental hygienist job that paid $45,000 a year," Matthew replied flatly. "That is not a career sacrifice. She did it by choice, not to support my client's business or because she had to move for his job. She just did not want to work anymore." The lawyer tried a different angle. "The house. She is entitled to half the appreciation." "The house was purchased before the marriage with my client's separate funds," Matthew stated. "And all improvements were paid for with separate funds from the business. The prenup clearly states that property purchased with separate funds remains separate property, including any appreciation." "The business value?" "Protected by the prenup. All pre-marriage value and all appreciation during the marriage. It is written in black and white on page 4. I just sat there watching the lawyer realize his client's case was falling apart. Tessa looked like she was about to cry. Elaine was furious. "So, what exactly is your client proposing?" the lawyer asked, his voice strained. "That is outrageous," Elaine said. "She was married to him for 7 years. And she signed a prenup she did not bother to read," Matthew shot back. "An agreement that her father insisted on, I might add. Funny how things work out." The mediation ended with no agreement. Her lawyer said we would see them in court. Fine by me. I had a business to run. The next few months were spent in the discovery phase. Her lawyer requested financial documents, which we provided. Everything proved that every single asset was separate property according to the prenup. My business account showed the income and how it was kept separate from any joint sources. The commercial building documents showed I bought it before the marriage and that all mortgage payments came from the business account. The home purchase records showed I bought it in 2014, 2 years before we even met, and that all renovations were paid for with business income. The retirement account statements showed the pre-marriage balance, tracked separately from any contributions made during the marriage. Matthew was methodical. Every document was organized, labeled, and cross-referenced with the terms of the prenup. He built a binder about 3 inches thick, section after section of proof that everything I owned was separate property. Her lawyer is going to try to argue that some of it became marital property through commingling, Matthew explained. But we have clear records showing where every dollar came from: the business account, rental income, your pre-marriage personal accounts. It is all separate and traceable. Her lawyer kept searching for an angle, some way to argue the prenup was invalid or unfair. They filed a motion claiming Tessa did not have independent legal counsel, but she did, even if her dad paid for him. The lawyer submitted an affidavit stating that he had explained the terms to her. She had the opportunity to review them, but chose not to and signed anyway. They tried to claim duress, but the signing was witnessed and notarized and took place 2 months before the wedding, plenty of time for her to back out if she had second thoughts. They tried to argue the terms were unconscionable, but she had specifically agreed to protect her family assets in the same way I was protecting mine. How could it be unconscionable when both parties had the same protection? They even brought in a financial expert to testify about the value of her contribution to the marriage, basically arguing that her presence and maintaining the home had a monetary value. Matthew took his argument apart in about 10 minutes of cross-examination. "What household duties did your client perform?" he asked their expert. The expert had to admit that Tessa did not cook much, did not clean, did not do laundry, did not do yard work, and did not do any home repairs. "We hired a cleaning service once a month because she did not want to do it. I did all the yard work myself. All home maintenance was my department." "So, what, specifically, did she contribute to the household?" Matthew asked. The expert could not give a convincing answer. "She provided emotional support and companionship." "Is there a market rate for emotional support and companionship?" Matthew asked. "Because that just sounds like a marriage," which it was. "My client is not required to pay for having been married." Their case was falling apart, and everyone in the courtroom could see it. Matthew told me their lawyer kept trying to settle, desperately looking for a deal that would give Tessa something. They offered to drop the alimony claim if I gave her $20,000. Matthew said no. They offered to drop all claims if I just let her have the Lexus free and clear. Matthew said she could have it, but she had to take the loan. "They are desperate," Matthew explained to me. "They came into this thinking it was an easy win, and now they realize they are going to lose badly." Her lawyer is probably worried about looking incompetent to a client whose father has money and connections. Meanwhile, I was just living my life. I worked, ran the business, and hung out with friends. I actually felt better than I had in years, like a weight had been lifted. I was sleeping better, had more energy, and was more focused at work. Apparently, being married to someone who resents you and sees you as an ATM is a lot more stressful than being alone. Through mutual friends, I heard that Tessa was losing her mind. Apparently, she had fully expected to cash in, to walk away with hundreds of thousands of dollars in assets and live comfortably on alimony while she found herself, or whatever. She had been telling her friends that she was going to get the house, half the business, the retirement money, everything. One of the bridesmaids, a friend of my friend Owen's wife, told me that Tessa was already looking at apartments in nice neighborhoods, planning the furniture she was going to buy, and talking about taking a year off to travel Europe with the settlement money. Now she was facing reality. She was going to walk away with practically nothing but her clothes and a car loan. Her parents had apparently hired a second lawyer to review the prenup, hoping to find something the first one missed. That lawyer said the same thing. It was valid, enforceable, and comprehensive. Tessa was stuck. Elaine called me in June. I almost did not answer, but I decided to hear her out. "You need to be reasonable about this," she started, without so much as a hello. "Tessa sacrificed 7 years of her life for you." "Tessa sacrificed nothing," I said. "She quit her job because she did not want to work. She spent 7 years spending my money without contributing to our household or our future. She decided to file for divorce thinking she was going to get a windfall. Well, she was wrong. You cannot just leave her with nothing. The prenup your husband insisted on says I can. If you have a problem with it, talk to Harold. He is the one who wanted to protect family assets. Well, I protected mine too. That is heartless. That is business. Tessa treated our marriage like a paycheck. Now the paycheck is over. She has a job. She can support herself like everyone else." She sputtered something about me being cruel and bitter, but I was done. "If you have any legal concerns, take them up with your lawyer. I am not discussing this further." I hung up and blocked her number, and Harold's too. The court date finally arrived in August. I took the morning off, dressed in slacks and a dress shirt. Tessa was there with both her parents and her lawyer, looking like they were at a funeral. The judge reviewed the prenup, the financial documents, and heard the lawyer's arguments about fairness and Tessa's contributions to the marriage. Then he looked at Tessa. "Did you read this prenuptial agreement before you signed it?" I skimmed it," Tessa mumbled. "Did your lawyer explain the terms to you?" "Yes, but I did not really think about it." "You did not think it would matter?" the judge said. "You signed a legal document protecting your spouse's separate property, and now you are surprised that it is being enforced." Her lawyer tried to interject. "Your Honor, my client was young and did not fully understand. She was a 24-year-old college graduate with independent legal representation. The judge shot back. She made a choice. Now she has to live with the consequences. The judge ruled in my favor on every single point. No alimony. I kept the house, the business, the commercial buildings, the retirement accounts, everything. She got her personal belongings and the Lexus with the full car loan. The marriage was dissolved. I watched Tessa crying on her mother's shoulder in the hallway after the hearing. Elaine was giving me a look that could kill, as if I had personally ruined her daughter's life. Harold just looked embarrassed, probably realizing his brilliant prenup idea had backfired on him spectacularly. I just walked out, got in my pickup, and drove back to work. I had a commercial installation to finish before the end of the week. The divorce was finalized in September. 7 years of marriage. Over, and I came out of it with exactly what I went into it with. My business, my properties, my future, all intact. Word got around our social circle pretty quickly. Most people were shocked to hear that Tessa got nothing. A few thought I was being harsh, but the people who really mattered, my true friends who had seen how she treated me during the marriage, they understood. Owen, from the wedding where we met, called me. "Dude, I heard about the divorce. You doing okay?" "Better than I have been in years," I said honestly. "Tessa's telling everyone you took advantage of her, left her with nothing, that kind of thing." Tessa can say whatever she wants. The legal documents tell the real story. "For what it is worth, man," he said, "I always thought she was using you. She talked more about your money than she ever talked about you." It fit with everything I had noticed but ignored during the marriage. From what I have heard through the grapevine, Tessa had to move back in with her parents. The boutique job did not work out, and she is struggling to find anything that pays enough for her to get her own place. Apparently, she is still bitter about the divorce, telling anyone who will listen that I stole 7 years of her life and left her with nothing. Comment: This story is a powerful reminder that goes beyond legal documents. A true partnership isn't about what you can get, but what you build together. It's about finding someone who respects your hard work and shares your vision for the future. Ultimately, a life built on mutual respect and shared dreams is the greatest asset you can ever have. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.